Minisode.
To Contesting Wrestling, Minisode 18.
The size of an 8-week-old fetus.
We have reached that stage of development where we have a soul now. So that's interesting.
Arguably.
They print them off and assign them.
Yeah. Sorry, Ben. I'm just reading out from Science, which we all know is the thing that I know about.
For 5th century BC Aristotelian science.
I'm talking about an awesome scientist who changed the world, a guy named Jesus Christ. Yeah. I'm going to flip my baseball hat backwards.
How dirty did that make you feel?
Increase my youth pastor energy.
Science. That was an Incubus album, right?
Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
Pardon me while I don't care for this band.
I will say, "Pardon me while I burst into flames" is a great line.
It is. No,
Incubus is one of the very few bands that I liked less when I saw them live.
Yeah, I was there for that
too.
Boring. At Lollapalooza that one year.
Yeah.
We are reflecting on the episode with Justin Cracchiolo.
Caraciolo.
I feel so bad about how much we have mangled his name.
I wasn't there. I didn't watch the episodes. Be ready for me to have nothing of value to contribute.
Honestly, that's me on most of the minisodes. I do watch the matches, and then they are gone from my brain afterwards.
So, yeah, we were talking about these matches from PWG. Unfortunately, Justin has stopped his wrestling training for the moment. He got into drafting school, which is good for him.
That's
and
awesome.
He's doing that.
He's forming an army?
I also threw him in that closet with everyone else.
Yeah.
I was trying to cover for you, Katie.
It's getting very full in your hostage closet. Drafted, that's architecture, right?
I think so. I didn't have to take it in high school because I was in band, so I don't know.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Think you draw stuff?
I took technical drawing in high school, which I think was like I had a T-square. All the sophomores in my high school were assigned T-squares. That didn't go well.
I took professional sleeping in high school.
Yeah. I took professional almost failing and then transferring to a school that required far fewer credits to graduate and still managing to graduate a year early, even though I basically almost flunked out of high school. So
that's how you got to work at Fastlane.
Yep. It was, the late center of a lot of forms of music in South Brooklyn that I did not care for, but
mostly metal.
I was excited to have a job I could smoke weed at.
Turns out your intelligence and ability to do well in school has nothing to do with your success in life, and more what it has to do with just how much money your parents have.
Oh yeah, pretty much. How good you are at taking tests that were originally designed by white supremacists. Much like the tests to get into special high schools that some of our co-hosts may or may not have gotten into.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which they'll probably get rid of. The only real reason why people oppose it is they're like, but that's what I've based my supremacy over everyone else on my whole life.
That and my skin color.
Yeah. But that's the only thing I've trained my child to do since birth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now they're 15 and or now they're 12 and about to enter, and I could tell them their whole life is a lie.
Now what will they tell people they did before college when I paid to send them to NYU?
Yeah, you mentioned you majored in sleeping in high school. I barely slept in high school. When I started going to college, which I never graduated from, they just gave me several doctorates. I started getting more sleep. Turns out that's why I felt bad. Because I wasn't getting any sleep.
Oh, yeah.
Because, they make you get up at 6 in the morning when you're my natural body thing says go to bed at 3 in the morning. So you can imagine what it was when I was 15.
Oh, I remember, my job that I was working when I was like 18, 19. Like, I would get out of work at 1 in the morning and then go over to your house and we would like watch shit like internet videos until like 5 in the morning. And then I would go home to the other side of New York City that I lived on at the time.
Yeah. I will say Justin is still doing the Takedown Breakdown podcast.
Well,
not podcast, radio show. It's on the internet as well, but 90.3
for our younger listeners. A radio show is like a podcast that only happens at one specific time
in one specific area,
and you need a radio in order to grasp it out of the ether.
Now, a radio is like a television with no pictures.
Invented by Johann Radio. I'm just gonna stop.
People used to sit around and listen to the radio, and they had to look at each other. It was terrible.
Yeah, terrible. So
remember that time we turned on the radio?
Yes.
It was a real mistake.
It was a real mistake.
We found out that Dimebag Darrell had been murdered.
Yeah, that we were so bored. It was like, let's put the radio on, and one of your favorite guitar players is dead. He was shot on stage. I would play Cemetery Gates, but I don't actually have it queued up. Hold on.
Good stuff.
Okay, here it is.
There was a lot more in our lives back then.
Yeah.
Yep.
Man, I'm always in the worst positions too when like I find out like people I love as like celebrities died. I remember when I found out Dusty Rhodes had died. I was about halfway walking through the hood in Philly to Doc's house at the time, having a horrible panic attack because I had smoked some weed that I'd found on the counter, and it was bad weed.
One of your roommates' weed.
I don't even think it was. That's the only time I'm sure I smoked something laced in my entire life. Something was wrong with that weed. I found it on the counter, and that was like when a lot of sketchy people were hanging out in my house.
Yeah, you needed to get out of there. You did.
Yup.
So PWG.
So all those guys who were in those matches, as we mentioned in the episode, have become big stars in one way or another. Tommaso Ciampa is at the top of NXT.
Yep.
He was the champion. He almost won the title back at this last takeover.
Almost, but Johnny Gargano had something to say about that. Adam Cole is the NXT champion.
And, he was kind of involved in all this. Aleister Black looks like he's going to have a big WrestleMania match, probably.
Yeah, probably. They really like him. He's on Monday Night Raw now.
Matt Riddle and Pete Dunne are the NXT Tag Team Champions together.
Yeah, the Broserweights, yes.
Joey Ryan's still doing his thing.
Well, Joey Ryan's, he signed to Impact, but he also is just the biggest and one of the biggest independent wrestlers on the scene. Like there was a kind of a bidding war for him, and he turns down almost everything because he makes more money being an independent contractor for himself.
Honestly, I would say he is number one for people sharing gifs of wrestling.
Yeah.
My social media is not as wrestling centric as your guys's, and I see a lot of Joey Joey
Jabryan.
I see lots of Joseph Ryanowski and or Orange Cassidy gifs floating around out there, and they're very
Cassidy's
enjoyable.
Getting over.
Yeah.
Good.
Jushin Thunder Liger did retire. I mean, God knows how long that will last.
Well,
but
we'll see. He had like 2 matches at the 2 shows at the Tokyo Dome this year against much older wrestlers, not older than him, but more or less his peers. He did the job in both of them.
Well, the one of them was against his peers. The other one was against the younger guys.
Was it against
the
younger
against
guys?
Hiromu and Dragon Lee.
I assume
I
that.
guess.
He did the job in both of them.
Did the job in both of them. It's a tradition in wrestling. You go out on your back because you don't got to go to work the next day. Guy you're in the ring with does. Oh, he came to the ring with Fujiwara. And I was like, Fujiwara isn't going to wrestle, is he? He's 100. He's like 77. He invented the Fujiwara armbar, which is an old tortured hold by now.
I assume that Jushin...
I think he did wrestle Fujiwara.
I think he was just standing on the outside.
No, there was one guy who was standing on the outside, but I think that was El Samurai, who can't wrestle anymore.
Yeah, he can't.
But everyone else was a great. Sasuke was in there.
Sasuke.
That means the samurai.
Yeah. El Samurai.
Just doing a little translation
in
for
Japanese.
Y'all.
Right?
I assume that Jushin Thunder Liger is named so because he practices Juche, the dominant philosophy in North Korea, which is basically evangelical Christianity reskinned with Stalinism.
I don't know. If I ever meet him, I'll ask him.
Cool, yeah. Just, get
We
that
do
specific.
need to watch some real deal Liger matches eventually because
when he's
he
not
was
50.
incredible in his prime. Yeah.
And when he's not just leading the human centipede of people up his butt.
Right.
That was the guy, okay.
Yeah.
With the Power Ranger
Sure.
costume.
Very influential. Great
Maybe
wrestler.
more Voltron than Power Ranger. I don't
Who
know.
else was in this match? Jeff Cobb, he's kind of a little bit of everywhere now.
Yeah, he's still in Ring of Honor, right?
Yeah, he's in Ring of Honor. I think he just showed up on Dynamite.
Ring of Honor is going through a transitional period where they made Marty Scurll one of the main creative guys.
Yeah.
some of the things they're doing look okay. I don't know if bringing back the Pure title and calling it that is such a good idea in 2020.
I think there was a demand for it. There had been like a little there is now nostalgia for early Ring of Honor now that Ring of Honor sucks, and part of that is people are like, oh, let's try the Pure title again. And I think there's a lot of people who could hold it. Like I'm interested in some of the stuff they're talking about for the first time in a long time.
The word pure is just like a little problematic in today's political climate.
They're not doing politics. They're doing wrestling. It's the name of the belt. Come on.
Their political problems in general, I just don't think it's the right. I don't really care.
I think you're
overthinking
it.
I would say as somebody who has literally no knowledge of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know. There is no such thing as something that is apolitical.
Yeah.
I do think there are things that don't have like overt commentary on electoral politics.
Right.
But there's no such thing as a creative work that has no politics.
And there's no such
it.
thing as something that's problematic either. It's the pure wrestling title meant to differentiate itself from, at the time, all the either hardcore wrestling or wrestling where people ignore the rules, which has come back into style again, I might add.
Sort of. I mean, but politics aside, like, pure wrestling doesn't really mean as much as it did against that backdrop of ECW and all the ECW...
Like CZW?
Yeah, ECW knockoffs and stuff. Now, I mean, what are they doing in New Japan? Fucking pure wrestling.
Well, yeah, but I'm thinking more against versus GCW or ICW or places that are doing...
But that's not who ROH's competition is. ROH's competition is Impact and AEW and NXT.
Yeah,
places where they do a whole lot of pure wrestling.
Also, in any style, in any art form whatsoever, is a fusion or evolution. Is either a fusion of several styles or an evolution of various styles. So the concept that there is such a thing as an unadulterated form of something, I think, is
anyway. Regardless,
I have literally no horse in this race. So
I don't either.
I'm just diving in because I feel
high five, Evan.
Division.
Woo!
They're definitely considering their optics because they're rebranding the women's division. It's not going to be the Women of Honor anymore.
I mean, the part of that is because they fired their champion.
Right. That was
and they came under a lot of heat for how they were treating the women. Anyway, we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, I think they're doing the Pure title at least partially for nostalgia because people like the old Pure title, and they're not going to be like, we're bringing back this title you liked and then call it something else. Well, then it's something else.
It's weird when there's nostalgia for stuff that happened when you were already an adult.
Yeah, it was 15 years ago now, you know? Like, I like to think, like, picture the stuff you were into 15 years ago, and then picture what you thought of stuff that had happened 15 years before that. And then you realize how long ago that kind of thing is, you know?
I was watching, what the fuck was I watching? I was watching Lock and Key on Netflix. There was a scene where somebody, like, knocks down a wall and, like, gets to, like, a part of the house that, like, that the kids used to hang out in that nobody has been in, you know, decades. And there's a big Radiohead, the Benz poster in there. And I was just like, oh, it has been as long between now and the Benz coming out as when I was in high school and listening to the Bends, and it had been it had been that long, like, since, like, Zeppelin broke up, like.
The horrifying passage of time.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because when you're in high school, you think of anything that happened before that as ancient history. I remember, like, in high school, Kurt Cobain had been dead for like 2 years or so, and I joined high school. He might as well have been dead.
You don't even go here.
Yeah. He might as well have been dead forever.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he
is dead forever. He is dead forever, Doc.
I know
not
he is
coming
dead.
back.
I mean, he might as well have been dead forever.
Right. Courtney Love killed him.
There's a.
I'm sorry, that didn't happen, guys.
No, yeah, it really was. It was society.
Yeah.
But it's
and the CIA.
There's a Douglas Adams quote.
Yeah, it was the CIA. I agree with that.
90% CIA.
It was the Paw Patrol. The fucking Paw Patrol killed
behind
Kurt
everything.
Cobain.
What did Douglas Adams say?
He has this quote. He's talking about technology, but it could really apply to anything. Where it's like anything that came into existence before you were 15 years old is part of the world. is just indivisible from the rest of the world. Anything that comes into existence between the ages of 15 and 35 is this like wondrous new invention that is enriching everybody's life and is amazing. Anything that comes into the world after you're 35 is an abomination that is destroying the youth.
Yeah, it's sad how many people really think that's true and don't even think of it like that.
I mean, I'm 31 and I already think TikTok is an abomination that's destroying the youth.
See, I find TikTok kind of cool.
I think it's kind of cool,
know,
too.
like,
I find it kind of cool too, but it's still an abomination.
Speaking of things,
it can be both things. Yeah.
Speaking of things that people think are abominations, we're talking about intergender matches.
Right.
One thing I was wondering if we'll ever see is we'll ever get to a point where where we feel comfortable with intergender matches where the women are the heels.
Oh, I hope so.
I hope so. It's something, but it's something we haven't really seen yet.
Not on even mainstream indie level. No, they always still have to tell the story of the woman fighting in from underneath. And right, if in an ideal world, it should be possible. And, just being in wrestling, that like the fact that it hasn't really been possible is nothing but a detriment to the women who wrestle, who want to play the full spectrum of characters. So I'm all for it. We need to take another couple of years for, society to be ready for it again, because they were ready for it 20 years ago, but it didn't happen. And so we're trying to bring it back. But yeah, we'll see. I think that the best way for it to actually happen is just for women in wrestling to scream as loud and as often as possible about it, just because it's been working so far. Because anybody who's like, oh, it's like bad because violence has just been shouted down by hordes of women wrestlers, like, no, it isn't. Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Or as one person put it greatly, if you don't see any difference between intergender professional wrestling and domestic violence, you don't understand what consent is.
To quote Nyla Rose, die mad about it.
Yeah, die mad about it.
We mentioned that Darren Corbin, Midwest, generally indie wrestler
with Eric Cannon.
Eric may have invented the slow motion wrestling.
Oh no, he didn't. Yesterday, did you see on our Twitter? I was.
Oh no! I don't monitor the Twitter as much.
I had posted on our Twitter that after re-listening to our episode, so does anybody know when this has been done earlier? And I tagged Darren Corbin. He responded immediately and said that he took it from Kikutaru.
Oh, Kikutaru! Of course, it was Kikutaru.
So thank you very much, Darren Corbin, for responding to us so promptly. He's cool. If you're in the Minnesota area, check him out.
Now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure when I bought like a best of Kikutaro in Japan, I saw that on there.
Kikutaro is a very unique performer. He's the best at what he does, and it's good that there aren't a million people that do what he does.
I just wanted to point out that Darren Corbin is not Baron Corbin.
No, two very different people.
Darren Corbin's better.
Yeah. Some ways.
Listeners, in case you're curious, if you ever interact with us on Twitter, there's a 90% chance that it's Doc.
Hey.
If you ever interact with us on Instagram, it's pretty much 100% chance that it's Ben.
Yep.
I cannot be reached by conventional means.
Facebook is usually you, right?
Not anymore. I stopped doing Facebook, and then somebody else started posting Facebook. I am hoping it's one of you, either that or
I think Instagram is linked to Facebook.
I've linked Instagram to Facebook, so it automatically posts Facebook. If someone replies with the Contesting Wrestling Facebook, it's usually me forgetting that I'm signed in as Contesting Wrestling on certain pages.
Yeah, I will occasionally respond to, like when Danielle from Heel Marks was like, oh, like I wish I had done an AJ Lee episode, and I was like, oh, we could totally fucking do a part 2. That was me.
It's 0% me. I take a hands-off approach. I am lazy. I make them do all the work.
You will run our Twitch channel eventually.
Okay, fair enough.
We all got to do something.
Yeah, I got to do something.
I'll take the butt pics.
That's the hand motion I was trying.
There we go. Yeah. Alrighty, I think we have no final thoughts on things.
I never had a thought to begin with.
We just took a few of our thoughts and splattered them on up. This is one of our mini episodes.
Fart.
If you'd like a lot more Contesting Wrestling, obviously subscribe to our feed, share it, tell your friends. I know more wrestling fans who'd like to hear this. We're better than half of the podcasts they listen to.
Patreon.com/contesting wrestling for the premium content. $5 a month gets you episodes every week.
Yeah, a whole other episode every single week we put out on our Patreon, and you get our regular episodes basically as soon as they're edited and uploaded, which, the timing on that varies, but you get them first. And
I will say this, the more Patreon subscribers we get, the faster the editing can happen.
Yes, exactly.
So, because it does make an actual concrete difference in our lives,
yeah.
especially my deeply unemployed life. This has been Contesting Wrestling. We love you. Thank you so much. Butts.